It wasn't with me.
Okay. All right, good to see you again. There we go. We're now continuing with the kind of thinking you have to think in to the process of how that the infinite creator goes from infinity into finite, infinity, from into infinity. And the place which it really occurs is the place called Malchut, kingship. Okay, but we're going to get into this. We have to get into the fact that um, we have to go from what's kind of concept of limiting light to a jump from nothing to something. Two different areas that we have to deal with. To be able to make a light which is able afterwards to come into creation, you have to have a, so to speak, a connection. That the light should have a connection with the level which has to come into revelation. Okay, we generally this comes to the level of what's called the keter, and to be able to go into the sort of the jump from the Malchus into the fact of Shabir physicality. So there's a seder of an order of how the delay it goes from level to level. Okay, it's we call there's this Chokhmah, Bina, Zohar, the different levels. But all these levels have, so to speak, a sensitivity of being close to the source. Okay. And again, there are there's generally two different kinds of um, uh, 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 powers of bringing something into reality. There is a power which is called the Yesh Netzal, the power to be able to bring in to something which is as a spiritual reality. And then there's the power which is going to be bring into things ultimately to the physical reality. Okay, in Hebrew it's called Yesh Netzal. Yesh Nivra. Okay. Now, to be able to, so to speak, to have something which is limited, the light is limited. So it goes through different levels. Okay. As it, and then we find that what's called the light is in first revelations is close to being revealed. And then as it goes down to next, it becomes further away. It's called a little further away. And then it goes to the lower level, which is considered like a window. And then it goes to the lower level, which is it's just like a hole. Okay, but generally on the levels which are going to create a spiritual reality, so then the general or the revelation is felt at its source. When it comes to the level of Malchus, then now it's going to be complete something different. Why? Because the Malchus is again two opposites that are going on. One part of the Malchus is the fact that it is the power to create something which does not feel its source, something which is separate. Now, it is the different levels of separateness, but the fact that it is not like the previous revelations makes it a possibility that from that level could come into something which eventually will feel as though it's separate. Right? The physical world feels as though it's separate. The physicality does not feel as though every moment is being created. And, and the truth is, as it says in Tanya, that the whole world and all the worlds have been created every moment from nothing to something. Right? As we might spoke about that, it's like a comparison, like a computer program. Right? The computer program, you can have all sorts of details and all sorts of colors and all of it, but as soon as you pull out the plug, there's nothing there, so to speak, in terms of the reality of what's going on. This is the reality of what we're living in. Even though it's in a computer, it's only two-dimensional reality. We're living in more than a three-dimensional reality. So we have three metaphysical, we have also time, different levels that we're not even aware of. But they're all in each moment being created from nothing to something. Okay, so now the fact that the Malchus is different. The ka is because not only is it in its it is set as it's created in such a way that it's as though as that it doesn't come from a previous source, whereas all the levels before are considered felt the source where they come from. An example of that is that we understand that if a person thinks something and he realizes what it means to him, so then he feels the subject area which is talking about. At the moment that he doesn't think about it, so the way that he feels it disappears. As we know we spoke before that a soldier has a commandment not to be afraid. The question is, how can you control being afraid? Being in a war zone is a fearful place. The answer is, if he doesn't think about it, he's not going to feel it, and therefore he's not allowed to think about it. So we see that there's a relationship between what a person thinks and what he's going to feel. So this is sort of an example of how the revelations in the higher levels are sensitive to the fact that they're being created. Whereas the Malchus is created in such a way that it's as though it's removed from its source and it doesn't feel that it is being recreated. So an example that a person has the power when he wants to say something. So he has in his mind the idea, his feelings, and then finally when he speaks, so then the words come out that the words are, so to speak, a separate entity. That words are really only the words and the letters are only a vessel to reveal what he's really feeling, what he's really thinking. Okay, so to speak, just like the letters of the speech are not connected to any previous revelation. There's a separate power that's able to communicate an idea. So too, the Malchus has a power to be able to receive and give over without the feeling of where it's coming from being also transmitted. Okay, so in other words, we're from Malchus until below Malchus it begins a new thing. Even afterwards there are such concepts of what's called parsaot, but they also filter out even more. But the beginning of the fact that there could be eventually a separate entity begins with the level of Malchus. So on one hand, it's receiving something which is very limited, very limited. On the other hand, because of its that and it's a separate power, so it has connected with the highest level. So the lowest and the highest are connected, and specifically through the level of the Malchus, will be able to be able to be brought through the Malchus a creation, the power of creation, which is really above the general level of the Seder Stoshus. In other words, to be able to bring something from nothing into an entity is it's coming directly from the Creator. That's why I say that specifically the Creator wants a dwelling place in the lower world, and that's over here. Why? Because the lower world is a vessel to be able to receive the Creator. Why is it a vessel? Because it's just like the world over here, we feel as though that there's nothing else but the physicality. So to speak, that it is a vessel for nothing else but the Creator. It goes together. A perfect match. Okay, so therefore this is what we're part of the process that we're using to think before we come to say the Shema Yisrael, thinking about this power that the Creator has and put into the world to be able to cause should be such a creation that it feels so it's a separate entity, but really the truth is that there's nothing else but it. Okay? So therefore, this gives the person the proper perspective when it comes to say Shema Yisrael. So not only does he believe it, but he begins now to understand how the process works. So therefore, it gives him more of an idea to be able to go on to. If a person knows more, understands more, then he can come to love the Creator even more. As the Rambam says that the way to love the Ibishter is by thinking into his creation. If the person sees the greatness of what the Ibishter is doing, so therefore he desires even more to connect himself to the Creator. And this is generally the whole line of where we're going during the davening. Is that the animal soul should understand and be excited about his opportunity to connect himself to the Creator through doing mitzvahs, then doing it with simcha, and through this he becomes unified with the natural keys, and therefore this is the process of making a person. This will begin with Maimer, but this is the whole process of bringing the person together to be one entity that is prepared to praise the Creator, to give himself over to the Creator, and to be happy during the process. And then with that we say, "Yichia the name of Rabbeinu Malchut Mashiach Haber," it should be an immediate redemption of all of these people in the whole world, and through a happy, enjoyable way.